Hey guys, hoping all is well. So in this video we're going to be continuing the read-along of the Crime Traveler's Adventure Series, Book 1, Brainwashed by Paul Aertker. And the last time we finished, we completed Chapter 15, so today we'll be starting with Chapter 16. Chapter 16, Karukian Proposal. Miss Guenerro entered the cold room, acting as if nothing had just happened. She calmly slid her chair out and sat at the table. Over the top of her cat-eye glasses, she glared at the children in front of her. She tossed a few frozen peas in her mouth and inhaled white fog from the silver canister. The Freon, or dry ice, or whatever it was, seemed to calm her down. "I'd like to make you all an offer," Miss Guennero said evenly. She leaned on the table and paused. "I've come to the conclusion that I could well use your services." No one said anything. Miss Guenerro spoke in a kind voice. "We've been looking for some smart children like you to help us recruit other children to a better life. To a good life." Magnus pointed at the monitors. "We've been watching you, and we think you are all very good." Astrid argued. "You can't just watch people. That's creepy." "Paris is the most visited city in the world," Magnus explained. "There are a lot of tourists to keep safe. That is why the good company is paid to serve and protect. Which is why we need more people to work with us." Miss Guennero's eyes rose across the table. "Which brings me back to my proposition for you four." Astrid spoke first. "I don't want to have anything to do with you." "No, thank you," said Jackknife. "But you could pass the peas, please. I'm starved." "Peas," said Gini. "I've already worked for you," said Hervé, "and I lost my hair and part of my leg." "Hervé," said Miss Guenerro, "once a good boy, always a good boy. I will always control you." There was a silence for a second as the cruelty of her words sank in. "And," Miss Guenerro said, "you haven't even heard my offer." She smiled. "I have a gentleman in Africa who would pay you handsomely. Millions each." "Bungu?" Jackknife asked. Miss Guenerro seemed shocked. "How do you know Mr. Bungu?" "We've done our homework," said Astrid. Miss Guenerro smiled. "Precisely why Mr. Bungu and I would like to hire smart children like you." The CEO swung her eyes around the table and stopped at Lucas. "And you, young man," she said, slicing the silence. "You've yet to speak." Lucas scratched the back of his neck and considered the possibilities. He knew Astrid's method of pestering was good for winning arguments, but ultimately her technique would never work against a person as ridiculous as Miss Guenerro. If Lucas was ever going to find out about his mother's, then he would need to know how Siba Guennero thought and how she worked. He smiled. "I'd like to hear more about your proposal." "I'm glad you've come to your senses," said Miss Guenerro. "You see, part of the good company's mission is to save children around the world." "That's full-on child labor you're talking about," Astrid fired back. "I'll let Lucas decide," said Miss Guenerro in a disturbing calm voice. "Since you have already refused an offer you haven't even heard." "Go ahead," said Jackknife. Miss Guenerro grinned. "Here's what I'd like to offer you," she said. "You can choose to work with me on my management team and keep your mind just the way it is now. Simple. If you choose this option, you will come and live and work with me and the good company. I will house you in the very best good hotels throughout the world. You will be waited on like a king. You will be allowed to sleep late every day. And there will be no school and no homework." Lucas mulled the idea. Everything Miss Guenerro did was way over the top. The good hotels were nicer than the Globe hotels. Everybody knew that. And the school was something Lucas had always dreamed of. "Or, option 2, Miss Guenerro continued. I can take you all to a ceremony, and you will become like good Karukians, and you'll do as I say. forever. Astrid huffed. Same thing either way. We end up working for you. You've already refused the proposal, Miss Guenerro said, pointing at Astrid, Jackknife, and Hervé. You all have the option to by default. Lucas raised his eyebrows and nodded an idea in his brain. Lucas? Miss Guenerro's eyes burned a hole in him. Lucas delayed her game as he put the finishing touches on the idea. He could tell that Astrid and Jackknife and Hervé were all getting a little nervous with his slow response. But Miss Guenerro seemed to hate Lucas's silence the most. I have an idea, said Miss Guenerro. We could brainwash you, one at a time. She pointed at Gini. Whom should we brainwash first, Lucas? The baby? Or has that been done? She pointed at Jackknife. Your friend? She nodded toward Hervé. The Frenchman? Then she pointed at Astrid. Or your sister? Lucas calculated. Everything was backward with the good company. Miss Guenerro ran the most powerful behind-the-scenes company in the world. She must be smart, somehow, Lucas reasoned. He knew that he, too, had to act differently. It dawned on him that the best way of dealing with somebody like Siba Guennero would be the opposite of normal. Things would be good with the good company unless he did something about it, in a way that no one else had done ever before. This was his father's plan all along. The only way Miss Guenerro could run things was by creating total confusion among those around her. It was a frantically unintelligent way to operate a company, but no one could beat her because no one really understood the rules of her games. Like it or not, Lucas had to change tactics. I'll make you a deal, said Lucas, pulling the baby to his lap like a big brother. Of course I'd like to help everyone, but obviously that's not possible. If you let the others go, and I get to keep this baby, then I will work for you and your management team. Lucas turned to look at Astrid, hoping she would trust him. The look on her face was pure and total confusion. She looked at Hervé and Jackknife. Help me out here, guys, she pleaded. Before either boy could speak, Lucas stole the show again. I don't want them either, he said, turning to Miss Guenerro. I wasn't born yesterday, young man, said Miss Guenerro. That's exactly what you do not want me to do. With a sinister grin, she nodded knowingly. But your scam is also a trap, because you want me to take them and leave you here with the baby. Right? I'm no fool. You're trying to trick me into thinking that you're trying to trick me, when in reality you're trying to trick me into thinking you're not tricking me. However did you guess? Lucas said. I mean, how did you ever know that there was exactly what I don't want to do, so you would do exactly not the opposite of what you think is a trick that is not actually a trick at all? Miss Guenerro looked at Magnus. We'll do the exact opposite of what Mr. Lucas Beans has said not to do. Is that clear? Magnus looked clueless. He opened the door, stuck his foot on the threshold to block the door open, and signaled to his Karukians in the hallway. The 6 boys stank of stale cigarettes as they entered the room. They grabbed Astrid, Hervé, and Jackknife by the arms and escorted them from the room, leaving Lucas and Gini behind. Miss Guenerro joined Magnus at the door. He handed her a master key card, which she slipped into the silver box on the wall. A light on the card reader flashed green. The monitors went black for a second, and then a video began to play. The screen started with a numbered countdown from 10. Say goodbye to your past, said Miss Guenerro, and prepare to embrace the good you have within. She turned off the room light. After you and your little friend watch this video, I will return and we will begin again. Calmly, Miss Guenerro and Magnus glided out of the room. The door closed behind them, and the electronic security device locked. The video countdown was at 6. Lucas put Gini on the table with a bowl of peas. Immediately, he went to the reader on the wall and removed Miss Guenerro's master keycard. Nothing happened. The video countdown was at 4. Lucas flung Miss Guennero's master keycard to Gini on the table and then tried the Navigo bike pass. He jammed it into the slot. Dead. Then he remembered the Global Hotel keycard in his sock. It didn't work either. The video countdown was at 2. Lucas started to snap the cards in his hand, but Gini began to crawl off the table at the same time. Without thinking, Lucas pivoted and grabbed her before she fell. The brainwashing video opened with a faded picture of Siba Guennero. "I'm sorry, Gini," he said. On the video, Ms. Guennero's hypnotic face was slowly coming into focus. Holding Gini to his chest, Lucas leaned against the door in defeat. His eyes were strangely drawn to the movie. Part of him was itching to know what she was doing in that video to brainwash kids. Gini grabbed the plastic cards from Lucas and started chewing on them. Then she leaned toward the wall and stuck the expired master key card, the one they had with them to open all the hotel doors, into the reader. As her little thumb hit the microchip in the card, a light flashed green on the card reader. The video stopped abruptly, and the screens went black. When Lucas touched his thumb on the key card in the reader, a red light flashed and the machine spit the card out. "You reset it?" Lucas said. "With your thumb?" Lucas pocketed the cards. From the hallway they heard a raspy voice. "I forgot my Freon!" shrieked Miss Guenerro from the other side of the locked door. She slapped the door handle like a 4-year-old in a tantrum. "And this stupid door is electronically locked. I hate locks." Lucas truly kicked it in and went into a blur of motion in the darkness. He set Gini on the floor, pulled the housekeeper's uniform off, and threw it down. Then he felt around for the air conditioning cover. He wrenched the metal grate off the vent and slid half his body down into the duct. Miss Guenerro beat on the door. "I forgot my Freon!" Gini shivered. "Voila!" "I'm not leaving you," said Lucas as he balanced his body inside the duct. Then he grabbed Gini, wrapped her arms around his neck, hugged her tight, and started to shimmy down into the air conditioning duct. Gini mumbled into Lucas's neck. "Voila!" she said. "I was thinking the same thing," said Lucas as he lifted himself up from the floor vent. He slapped around on the table until he found the bottle of dry ice. He cranked open the valve in the canister to full, and then the room began to fill with fog. Gini stuck her tongue out and said, Lucas positioned himself inside the air conditioning duct and replaced the metal grate on the floor above him. Then he and Gini descended into the hidden passages that Hervé had told them about. Chapter 17. Duck in the Duct. Peering through the air conditioning vent went above his head. Lucas saw the light to the lucky office switched on. Miss Guenerro, Magnus, and the Karukian boy stepped into the dry ice fog. Lucas could hear them frantically moving the table and chairs in the near blinding haze. Miss Guenerro shrieked, "I can't see!" "It's your ridiculous Freon," barked Magnus. "We can't see anything in this smog." "The baby," said a Karukian boy. "It's gone." Another Karukian said, "And they stopped the video." "Impossible," Magnus said. "Get the baby," Miss Guenerro stated, "and you'll get them both." Lucas could hear Magnus's walkie-talkie squawking as he and Gini inched down the duct. "Wah!" Gini cried, her tiny voice echoing in the duct. "Sorry," said Lucas, who was squishing his legs against the sides of the duct for support. "I can't see, you know. We are in a duct." "Duck," Gini repeated. A few minutes later, Lucas and Gini came to an intersection. The metal tube seemed to be converging and dropping down into a cooling unit. The blowing air soon became fierce and cold. Gini's thin, wispy hair was whipping straight into Lucas's face, tickling his nose. Lucas tried to squeeze through the largest chute. When his chute rattled against a fan blade, he knew he'd gone the wrong way. From the opposite side of this intersection, he saw a light. Then a voice called out, "Give me your foot." "Dad?" Lucas answered. "Dad?" "Yeah?" His dad's voice sounded muffled with all the voice from the air conditioning. He and Gini scooted deeper into the duct and closer to his dad. "Move back!" Lucas called out. Then he kicked the metal grate, and the vent flew off and clattered on the floor. Lucas put his face down and tried to peer into a garage. "Hello?" he called out. "Dad, hand me the baby first." With his elbows and knees wedged against the metal walls, Lucas slowly peeled Gini's arms off his neck. Then, holding her by her arms, he dangled her down through the vent. "Got her." Lucas's dad didn't sound right to Lucas. He looked through the vent again and smelled gasoline. Lucas sucked in and corkscrewed himself down through the opening. He hopped down and into the garage, where the slap of his shoes echoed across the concrete floor. He couldn't believe what he saw. He couldn't believe what he had just done. He had wanted his dad to be there so badly that he made himself believe it was his dad's voice. There was Gini, strapped with a series of bungee cords to the back of Goper's motorcycle. Ekki and Goper started their two Ducati motorcycles, and then sound blasted through the garage, echoing off the cement walls. The Ducatis were both Hypermorard 1100 EVO SPs. The engines, at 7,500 revolutions per minute, had the ability to reach the equivalent of 95 horses at full speed. Lucas knew that if the motorcycles left the garage, he would most likely never see Gini again. The two Ducatis eased up the ramp, the engines grumbling for action. Gini swatted Goper's curly hair from her face. Then the racing bikes peeled out and into the streets of Paris, leaving Lucas alone in the dead silence of the garage. And I'll stop the video there, ending chapter 17. But I hope you guys enjoyed this video, and as always, please take good care of yourselves. And in the next video, continuing this series, we'll be continuing Brainwashed with chapter 18. But thank you guys again so much for watching, and please be safe. Take good care. Bye.